wayside. When we move on to something, you want to continue to work on it and continue to explore it. Okay. Before we move on to this one, I've pretty much covered everything at a real basic level right now. It's really a matter of you being willing to explore and listen and see what comes to you when you use this meditation. Okay. But are there any questions on it before we get into it? Okay, we'll get started then. So we'll put our feet shoulders distance apart. Create the triangle. Make sure that you don't have a 90-degree bend here. Line the center of the triangle up with the upper dantian. So you just want to have your feet shoulders distance apart there, Don. Okay. All right, and once you get set there, settle in, and always, as always, listen to your alignments. But particularly this one, you need to consciously remind yourself to suspend the head from above. Relax the shoulders, allow the elbows to drop. Keep a gentle roundness to the back and a gentle hollowness to the chest. And then work your way down from there. Be sure you give some awareness and some reflection to the aligning of these three dantians as we've talked about before. See if you can begin to discern how they share information with one another. So if your eyes are closed, I'll ask you to open the eyes, and with the in-breath, slowly turn the palms towards you if you would. Use the out-breath to slowly allow the crane heads to descend downward towards Mother Earth. And the in-breath, as always, if one chooses, with an awareness of gathering the universal chi as we create a single chi ball overhead. And we use the out-breath, such as to guide that down and into the lower dantian where the hands separate and thus return to Wu Ji. So when you're doing any of your Qigong, which your standing meditation is, a system of Qigong, try to always at least be willing to explore and change, or expand is a better word, your perception. And this is why I throw out some suggestions to you, but always leave yourself open to what your inner guidance may guide you to as far as what's going to be good for you. Sometimes people like to visualize the color, so I've talked to you about the color that's associated with the upper dantian is indigo. You're creating the triangle. The triangle in many cultures, as well as ours, is symbolic of that of transformation. So a lot of times people like to create the visualization of the triangle around the circle that they're using to symbolize the energy center. And that little bit of change in perception, or any little bit of change in perception, can sometimes open you up to much greater, more expanded understanding of what you're doing, okay, and how it affects you, okay? So if there's no questions on that, we're going to move right into Yang's 21. Try to make sure we got a good number of people here, which is great, but just make sure that you have enough room to expand your arms. Try to always give thought to everything that you do as far as, our system's concerned, is visualizing and conceptualizing the self as one unbroken Qi. It's very, very important. This is why that concept of water, can be a very, very valuable way to conceptualize the self. Every single movement that you're doing, if you think of this, as the Chinese would call it, this universal energy of all that is, that surrounds, permeates, and connects everything. Every single Qigong movement that you do draws that universal energy through you. And if you're open to conceptualizing yourself as this one unbroken Qi, you can better understand how every single movement is drawing that through all the subtle energetic pathways that make you up. But if you're not willing to expand your perception, then you sort of stay in a little bit of a limited box as far as what you're able to experience, okay? So, figure it out for ourselves in accordance with what's comfortable for you. So, I'm going to talk you through Yang's 21 here. So just relax. Bring your mind to focus on the center at the lower dantian. Give yourself a few moments there to clear that constant chatter in the mind, or what the Chinese might refer to as monkey mind. And from there, with the in-breath, we're going to extend slowly out through the crane heads to the corners, keeping the shoulders relaxed, elbows down. Once at shoulder height, we'll breathe out as we seat both wrists so the palms are flat to Mother Earth. And then with the in-breath, we'll slowly crisscross the right wrist over the left in front of the chest. And with the out-breath, we'll relax the wrist down. And with the wrist lightly touching and the in-breath, we'll turn both palms towards us so that the left palm is closer to self and the thumbs are chin height. And with the out-breath, the hands will slowly separate as they descend downward. With the in-breath, the palms rise slowly to the heavens, keeping the hands shoulders distance apart and the elbows down up to shoulder height. And with the out-breath, the arms will expand slowly to the corners, keeping the back rounded and the chest hollowed. And with the in-breath, we'll slowly roll the fingers in to create Phoenix Eye, guiding the energy into the pineal gland. And with the out-breath, we'll slowly turn the palms upward and open the hands. And as we continue the out-breath, the elbows will point down and the palms follow as they point downward to Mother Earth, to shoulder height. And with the in-breath, we again turn the palms to the heavens. And we continue the in-breath as we again roll the fingers in to create Phoenix Eye, guiding the energy into the pineal. And turning the palms to the heavens with the out-breath, we simultaneously press through the toes and through the palms. And with the in-breath, we lower ourselves through the feet as we crisscross the wrist so that the palms face away and the right wrist is closer to self. And with the out-breath, the wrist relax, and as we continue the out-breath, the hands descend to chest height. And with the in-breath, with the wrist slightly touching, we turn both palms towards us so that the left palm is closer to self and the thumbs are chin height. And with the out-breath, the hands will slowly separate as they descend downward And with the in-breath, the right hand lays gently atop the left in front of the lower dantian so that the thumbs lightly touch and the fingers align, creating your mudra. And turning to your left with the out-breath, we shift the weight through the right foot, turning to your left, and coming into the center with the in-breath. We begin to slowly shift the weight through your left foot as you exhale, turning to your right. And coming into the center slowly with the in-breath. The knees are slightly bent as always. We breathe out as we bend relaxed from the waist. The hands will separate and the palms will turn down. And you continue breathing out and descend only to what you're comfortable with your flexibility. Coming up slowly with the in-breath, we turn the palms upward. And we continue the in-breath as the right wrist crisscrosses under the left. Continue breathing in as we come vertical and the palms face us and the thumbs are chin height. And then with the out-breath, the left hand begins to ascend to the heavens as the right hand descends to Mother Earth, turning the palms in unison with the continuation of the out-breath. Put this hand right in front of the lower dantian, and that's it. And turning both palms towards us again with the in-breath. The right palm will then be closer to the self. And with the out-breath, the right hand begins to ascend to the heavens as the left hand descends to Mother Earth. Again, turning the palms in unison with the continuation of the out-breath. And with the in-breath, we turn both palms towards us. This time the left palm will be closer to self. We're breathing in until the wrists intersect and the thumbs are chin height. And then with the out-breath, the hands slowly separate as they descend downward. And thus we'll take a breath in as we turn both palms down. And we use the out-breath such as to seat the wrist, bring the hands back to Wu Ji, and just take a moment as you close your eyes to listen, if you will, to the energy that you are. See if you can perhaps perceive a greater awareness of balance within yourself. So right from there, we're going to do the Qigong exercise where we extend out through the crane heads to the corners. As you saw last week with the introduction of one of your newer movements in your form, stork spreads its wings. This is, you know, the foundation of that movement, okay?
Well, you didn't finish the 21 though, did you?
Yeah.
Where you put the...
Yeah.
Oh, we did it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Sometimes you're very relaxed, and honest to goodness, I mean, sometimes you can be very, it's you know, a lot, you know, people oftentimes describe when you get to a certain level of your Tai Chi that it becomes like moving meditation. Now, it's a process to get to that point, but also your Qigong can also become very much that moving meditation. And it's not unusual, for lack of a better word, and not directed to you, but speaking in general, that we can sometimes sort of you know, lose that, you know, focus of where you are in it, okay? So let's go through with this here, okay? Any questions on Yon's 21? It's getting better. Like I said, you know, trust in the process, you know, as you do it more and more and use the printout that I gave you and get more comfortable with it, it'll just become second nature. So it is such a very important Qigong. And in 5 minutes, you can open up the whole body. So there's not a whole lot of excuse not to at least do something on a daily basis, okay? So, nice and relaxed. Try to remember, you know, it's important to understand what you're doing physically, but as you get more comfortable with that understanding, it's even more important, or I should at least say equally important, to understand and feel what's going on internally. Because if you can feel the gentle roundness of the back, and the shoulders relax and the elbows down, then you're not going to have to remind yourself from an external point of view. So try to always, or what we call, listen within yourself, okay? So from Wu Ji, with the in-breath, we extend slowly out through the crane heads to the corner, just up to shoulder height, listening to the roundness of the back, the hollowness of the chest. Once at shoulder height, you're going to exhale as you seat both wrists and bring the palms down the top of the thigh height. In-breath again. Try to feel that the shoulders are relaxed, the elbows are down. And as you get more comfortable with the movement, you're permitted to close your eyes going inward and listen. See if you can better perceive, at least give some thought to the concept of one unbroken Qi. Nice and relaxed, extending. Remember, the mind always leads the Qi. Try to remember the statement, one must never push the water. About a half a dozen more, not really going to count, but just about a half a dozen more. Just watch your right elbow there, Marcy. It's just kicking out just a little bit when it comes up, okay? So just try to relax that shoulder. And Marianne, you just have to, if you follow me here, you're just hinging a little bit too much from the elbows. If you go out from the crane heads, look how it brings the whole arm with it, with the elbows down, as opposed to hinging it from the elbow, okay? So it should be nice and smooth, continuous and fluid. And a lot of people just blow these Qigongs off and because they're very, very simplistic, externally looking. But everything that we do has relevance and importance and purpose. And at your pace, we're just going to do 2 more, so don't speed up or slow down. Just continue with the pace that you're comfortable with in order to synchronize your breath with it. Keep your shoulders relaxed. If you get done your second one, just bring the hands to Wu Ji. Okay. So, if you just stay with the feet, shoulders distance apart, we're just going to do this very, very basic Qigong here, just to warm the torso up a little bit. So just create the embrace the tree posture, if you would. Keep the nose and the chin on the center line. As everything that we do, create that vertical awareness. You know, we create that light column, if you will, projecting it down through the crown, through the body, through Hui Yin, so that when you're turning from side to side, that you're not as apt to lean with that vertical reference. So take a breath in, and as you breathe out, you're going to create the push. As you turn to your left, it'll look opposite with me. As you turn to your left and breathe out, create the pushing expression with the hands. And then breathe in as you recreate the embrace the tree. And as you breathe out, turn to your right as you slowly turn the hands into the pushing position. Now you want to use the mind as if you're actually pushing something, but not within like a isometric type of an expression. It has to be that you're using the mind to lead the energy. Think of perhaps an energetic box that you're pushing. So if you see that energetic box and you lead the energy out through your hands, see yourself actually moving that box, if you will. It can be anything that you wish to create. The box is just one example. You want to just make sure that you're not tensing. It has to be nice and relaxed as everything that we do, and use it to begin to warm up the torso here. Make sure that you're recreating the embrace the tree when you come back into the center. Some of you guys are forgetting that. So when you go from the push, it recreates the embrace the tree, and as you leave front dead center, it begins to recreate the expression of the push. It's a nice, very gentle Qigong exercise, good to warm up the torso amongst other things. So at your pace, we're just going to do 1 more to each direction. When you get done, just bring your hands back to Wu Ji if you should get done before the rest. Okay. Any questions thus far on anything, guys? We'll just do a little bit of our rocking Qigong to warm up, and then I have to give you this. I'm not going to use it as one of your primary standing meditations in the beginning of class, but we're going to work on it probably about a minute on each leg just to get you used to it. It's called universal pose. So after we do this rocking Qigong to warm you up a little bit, you'll see that in the movement that we're going to begin to touch on this week, which is going to be your crane, cools, and swing, I have to, I've been giving you the tools, whether you understand it or not. Your crane frolic, to a great degree, it was beginning to prepare you like weeks ago for some of these movements that are going to ask you to be on one leg for a bit of an extended period of time. That gave way to the lift hands. The lift hands will also be a benefit along with the crane that we've been doing. for this coming movement of crane cools its wing. And then this standing meditation will give you a really, really great way to begin the concept of transfer and releasing through this one leg, okay? So let's do a little bit of this rocking Qigong so we can get warmed up here. So let's put our left foot out in front. Make sure that you have enough distance. We should be pretty good because we just got done Yang's 21. Let's go over some of these internal concepts. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on them because we've covered them pretty much here. But if you just put yourself in the embrace the tree in a good bow stance here, 60-40, as you roll the weight back, just be aware for right now of the distinguishing between substantial and insubstantial. Just rock back and forth just a little bit. Okay, because sometimes people just do these from a mere external point of physical point of view, and they're not paying attention to any of the internal awarenesses. So one of the most important things internally is you're distinguishing between substantial and insubstantial as you change position. Okay, so in your bow stance, your front leg is substantial, and now as you roll back, your rear leg is substantial. We've talked about that extensively. The other thing that's occurring here is the folding and opening of the quad fold. So when you sink the weight through the front foot, that front quad folds closed and the rear quad fold opens, and then vice versa when you roll back. So another very, very important internal awareness. And then you have the concept of balancing energies. In order to create this forward sinking, there has to be the rearward pushing through the rear foot and vice versa. You can't have one without the other. So if you're consciously aware of that, you'll smooth your movement out. So let's keep it sunk through the front foot here. So with those awarenesses, roll the weight back, and as the body turns slightly to the right, the crane heads go out and then up to the corners, up to shoulder height, and then from foot to leg to waist to hands as you square up and sink it. And then you roll it back, make your pivot, and we say to ourselves, rooted in the foot, driven through the leg, directed through the waist, expressed through the hands, to create a greater awareness of this concept of one unbroken chi. If you're not good with memorizing those little songs, just connect the dots, okay? All you got to do is see the one dot from Mother Earth, through the foot, through the leg, through the waist, up through the spine, and just pencil them together. It's getting better, okay? 2 more and we'll do the other side. You've come a long ways. It's good. Put the leg nice and smooth, continuous fluid. Think of the water. Think of also the expression of yin and yang. Think of as the movement goes forward, that's the wave flowing into the beach. That's the expression of the yang energy. And think of the wave, how it would recede back to the body of the ocean. That's the yin expression. Constantly interplaying with one another. One not separate from the other, but working in harmony. Okay, now we'll change up legs. Good job, though. Much better. Okay. So we don't have to do the rocking back and forth because it's a little bit easier once you go through it. You can just mirror it on this side. So we'll go right into our rocking Qigong. So we're going to roll the weight back, keep the shoulders and hips square. Slight turn to the left this time as the crane heads go out and up to the corners. And then from foot to leg to waist to hands. If you're one that likes to read different things, sometimes this will also be described as the threading concept in our art. Same concept, they just, instead of using dots, they think of pearls with holes in them, and they put strings of silk thread through them. So, a lot of times in the description of it is the threading concept. Whatever works for you. Good. Everybody's keeping their rear heels down. This is big progress in a month, so we're good. Now let's just do 3 more. At your speed, much better. So next week we'll be able to add another one, okay, that's based off of this foundation. And you'll see how they're all based off this foundation, but the arm movements are just different. Try to keep the hands in the center there, John, when you're sinking it, okay? I'll just finish up with 1 more. Yeah, that's better, John, good. Come up as the elbows are down. Remember just what your Qigong was helping you to feel just a few moments ago. okay? And then just roll it back as the crane heads descend, and then make a slight pivot, step in, and just gather in, and just gonna close it out. Okay, so this posture here, very, very important posture. A lot of people, they learn it and they don't want to do it because it can be challenging. It's called universal post. But you hear me say constantly to remind you about this concept of transfer and release, okay? Remember we talked, we've talked extensively about this, of changing your perception of not using strength. That's a really challenging concept in our art to begin to wrap your head around, and it'll constantly show itself a little bit more clearly to you if you're willing to explore it. But basically try to think of it in a very crude manner like this, and this is how I always point it out to my students, and at a very basic level. Most of us are inclined to give the perception of using strength as children's building blocks, and you've heard me say this time and time again. We think of the ankles as one building block, and then the knee on top of that is another building block, and the hip on top of that is another building block, and you keep stacking one on top of the other, and you create this structure, foundation, that's built on this concept of strength. Now, what we want to try to do is dissolve the blocks, or at least hollow the blocks out, so that you can begin to perceive how the energy that we are, like water, flows right through. And then this way you begin to change your perception and expand into the awareness that it's the energy, okay, and you're not using strength. And with that change in perception, you begin to move the energy through you to a much greater degree. When you stay in that limited frame of how you perceive and using strength, then you stay there, and the energy, to a great degree, doesn't move as well. So we have to at least be willing to explore these concepts, and if we're willing to begin to change our perception, we'll begin to change our experience. So now this can be challenging, because this is where now you have to put that to work, and immediately it brings it into the necessity to put this into practice. So you're going to put your right foot at a very slight angle outwards. And also this is where your cat stance, remember we did the crane frolic to help you develop, amongst many things, your cat stance. So now you're going to go out in that 90-10 cat stance, okay, for your body frame. So make sure your front toe's straight ahead. Rear foot's at a very slight angle. Make sure that you check your alignments here, particularly the pelvis area. The cat stance is a very easy one for people to break their alignments, and the buttock sticks out. And then you can see how you'd be using strength there. Everything sort of contracts instead of flowing through. So roll that pelvis area forward and upward, keep the knees slightly bent, and then we create the embrace the tree. Okay, so you got to be up on this toe here, John, if you can. Or you sit up on the toe, so you're 90-10. 90% through the rear foot, 10 here. You got to be able to pick this up. So just relax for a moment until so I don't want you to hold any long, because let me get the timer set here, unless you want to do 3 minutes. But we're just going to ask you to do a minute. A minute's pretty good to start with, seriously, okay? But you have to make sure when your quad starts saying, I don't like to do this, don't want to do this anymore, think of the quad saying that instead of thinking of it on a physical level where the quad muscle's contracting. Think of it as energy that's contracted. One of the ways that you can perceive contracted energy is in your mind, draw on a piece of white paper, take a number 2 pencil point in your mind, and put an infinite amount of dots in a very compacted circle. And think of that as contracted energy. Now, when your quad begins to say that it's contracted, don't think of it as the muscles contracted. See those dots on the page, and in your mind and your perception, spread those dots out. Create separation and expansiveness, and that's how you begin to transfer the energy through that contracted space. Okay? So give that some thought. Okay? So if you get and you're not comfortable doing a minute, just come out of it, but give it your best, okay? And just breathe using your Buddhist breath. So I'm going to set the timer. Make sure you have 90-10, 90% through the rear, and create your embrace the tree. If you are comfortable, you can close your eyes. A lot of times people aren't comfortable with this stance in the very beginning, and it's very challenging for them to maintain their balance and awareness. So if you're not comfortable with the balance with the eyes closed, have your gaze out into infinity. Now begin to conceptualize that this supporting system is not using strength. Gotta let that transfer and release through you. Think of it as water. From the top of your head, through the whole body, through the supporting leg. Now you don't have to do it, but in your mind, think, can I lift my front toe up? Can I lift that foot up that's 10%? So sometimes what happens, we begin to change that weight distribution, okay? So just sink it down. Take a moment there. Give yourself a little bit of a breather, okay? And we're going to just make a slight pivot on that left heel. And we're going to just step through with our cat stance and this, and make sure it's 90-10. You're not going to get the benefit out of it if you're not 90-10. If you sink too much forward, you're in that space of double weightedness, as we would call it, okay? Make sure your front toe is straight ahead, guys. Okay, and then you're just going to create the embrace the tree in that 90-10 cat stance. So you're out on the right toe. Be monitoring, or what we would call observing or listening more accurately, to your alignments at all times. Think to yourself, could I lift this up if I had to? Okay, and that'll allow you to test yourself, make sure that you are indeed 90-10. Okay, now just touch lightly on your right heel, make a very slight pivot, step in, let the crane heads descend, and just close out your Qigong exercise as you know how to do. Okay, let me just shut this off. So if you haven't already picked up one of these at, kitchen store, don't spend a ton. Make sure that you get minute second. Sometimes people don't look at the package and they go to a kitchen store to get an hour, minute one. You need a, okay, so later, you can get the minute, hour one. But this is good to start at a minute, okay? Once you get very, very comfortable with a minute, like in other words, like John, like, wow, did you even set the timer, okay? Once you get to that point, then add 30 seconds. And then, once that gets really comfortable, and you want to eventually work your way, to 5 minutes on each leg. And that's, where you want to get to, but not right away. You're not trying to, it's not a race from point A to point B. You have to trust in the process of that journey to get you there, okay? So, and you don't want to use strength, so it's very, very important. So this is, these stances have been around for eons of time, okay? It's just that they're not the most comfortable thing to do, but a lot of times you grow to really like them because you really begin to see a difference. And even though we're sort of gearing this to help you in preparation for this crane cools wing that we're going to start today, it's going to help all of your Tai Chi. Because when you begin to create a better awareness of transfer and release, every single movement, your transition from stroking to the bird's tail and the palm luge, every single movement, because now you're not using strength. Now you're much more secure and rooted and connected to Mother Earth. So I'm just going to run this over here, excuse me, Sally. So let's, we're going to do a little bit of a review here, just with this lift hands, and then we're going to do the lift hand sequence into the movements that we began last week. So let's just go through the lift hands in the Qi Kong format here. Let's just go put our heels lightly touching, if you would. And when we do this as a Qi Kong exercise, these are your basic guidelines here. If you put your right hand out in front, we're going to call this the forward hand, okay, just so we keep it on the same page. Put your fingertip of the index finger underneath your right eye. You don't want to block your vision. Now, look at your arm. Make sure you don't have a 90-degree bend. I can have my arm like this, but I have a 90. But if I go out, I can still have my index finger underneath my right eye without the bend, without the 90-degree bend. And now your left palm, Lao Gong, the energy gate of that hand, lines up with the inner part of that right elbow without crossing the center line. Remember, draw an imaginary line as if you had a zipper or button, and try not to let that hand cross the center line. And think of something in between the hands. And just seat your wrist and see if you can begin to experience this concept of contracting energy. This is a very, very high expression of contracting energy in our art. So if you think of something between the hands and you just seat the wrist without crossing the center line with that rear hand, you'll begin to feel that contracting energy. If you don't, you have to keep playing with it, okay? It'll reveal itself when it's time for you. Okay, so let's just go through what the hands are doing here. So all you're going to do, keeping the hands like they are, is just turn the palms. So now your palms line up with your forearms here, okay? And they just descend down. But keep them outside, out in front of the body here, okay? So they don't draw back. And then turn the crane heads up, go up to the corners, and then seat both wrists. And now your left hand is going to be your more forward hand. Same concept, you're just mirroring it on the other side. And you got to create that contracting energy. Remember your guidelines, okay? And then turn your palms. Let the crane heads descend. Come up. Shoulder height. Seat both wrists. Bring that in. Okay. One more time with each hand. Crane heads descend. Turn up to the corners. Left hand will be the more forward hand. Turn the palms. In. See, some of you guys are doing this, so watch what I'm doing here and try not to do it this way. Some of you guys are going down here, okay, but you're coming up way higher than shoulder height. So that means as you're bringing this in here, you're bringing this hands down, and they don't want to come down. They have to go in. This is why if you use your guideline, this is why we've been doing this Qigong here at shoulder height. If you just keep your arms at that height and just turn the hands, when you bring it in, you're going to see that it's going to, you're not going to have to bring the hand down, that forward hand. So give that a try and look out for that awareness if you would. So we'll go up through the crane heads, and then we'll make the right hand the more forward hand. Feel that's it. There you go. That's much better. One more time on each side, and we'll do the legs separately, and we'll put it together, and then we'll put these parts of this form. And this is how you should practice at home. Get used to the hands. Get used to the legs, and then put it together. But feel it, as opposed to just physically doing it. Okay, then just bring the hands down, sort of let them just be in imaginary waist-deep water. Now, you're going to sink the weight through the left foot. Bring the right knee up to a height. Remember we went through this a couple weeks ago. And angle that foot in towards your center. Okay, if you're comfortable, bring it up, angle it, and then go out and touch on the heel, again in that 90-10 stance, but it's not a cat stance because you're touching on the heel. And then just bring it back, toe, heel, toe, bring the knee up with the foot angle, step out, touch on the heel. Now you've got to feel where you touch it here, because if you go too long, you're going to pull yourself and your energy forward. So you've got to be able to maintain that 90-10 stance. Toe, heel, toe, bring the right knee up with the foot angled, step out, touch on the heel. And bring it back, toe, heel, toe, bring the left knee up with the foot angle, step out, touch on the heel. Now let's bring it back. Let's try to put it together. Okay, is there anyone that's not comfortable bringing their knee up?
Oh, I can't.
Okay, then, good. What you want to do here, Sandy, what you want to do is you just want to step out, okay? You're going to just step out and touch on the heel. That's all you're going to do.
Okay.
Okay? So don't bother bringing the knee up with the foot angle. Just bring your foot up and step out on the heel in that 90-10 stance.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so if there's anybody, remember, this is not going to mean you're not doing Tai Chi. It's nothing like that at all. You're using this modified way to continue to promote and encourage the movement of energy. If you try to do something that you're not comfortable with, it's really hard to move the energy if you're sort of trying to maintain your balance, okay? So work with it the way I just described to Sandy, and if the body begins to acclimate and adjust to it, you may be able to, eventually lift your knee up. If not, this is very acceptable, okay? So find which way is comfortable for you. So with the hand, make sure that the hands don't go back too far to the side, so you maintain the gentle roundness of the back and the gentle hollowness of the chest. So with the weight sunk through the left foot deep into Mother Earth, Bring the right knee up with the foot angled and the crane heads up to shoulder height. And then as you're in the process of touching on the heel, contract the energy. The right hand's the more forward hand. And then we bring it back. It's a toe, heel, toe cadence. Weight through the right foot. Left knee up, left foot angled. Left hand's the more forward hand. Okay? Okay, bring it back. Toe, heel, toe. Right knee comes up. Bring it back. Toe, heel, toe. Left knee up, foot angle. Now, let's all just try it the modified way, okay? Even though I know that the greater majority are comfortable doing it with the knee coming up, but I need you to be honest with yourself. If it feels more comfortable doing it the modified way, do it the modified way until you begin to integrate a better sense of balance, okay, and centeredness, okay? This is a very challenging one because the movement's relatively new, and we begin to overthink, and the energy goes to the head, we come top heavy, and things begin to teeter, okay? So we have to even more remind ourselves to stay focused at the lower dantian. So let's just do it the modified way, just a few times, about half a dozen times. So sink the weight through the left foot, and as the crane heads come up, just touch on your right heel. You don't have to worry about bringing the knee up. Bring it back, toe, heel, toe. Bring the crane heads up and step out on the left heel. Now I want you to be honest with yourself. Which way can you personally feel that it's more conducive to moving the energy in a more fluid manner? If it's this way, then this is the way you should do it until the body begins to adjust. Okay? If the left foot's out in front, the left hand will be the more forward hand. Okay? One more time each side and we'll move on. One of the great things about our art, guys, is it's adaptable to every individual's needs. Okay? And we have to honor that. Okay? Okay, let's bring that back. Okay? So when we get to that part in the form, I'm going to ask you to use your best judgment and your discernment on how you choose to express it. Okay? But if you can feel the difference, if you're really honest with yourself, if that way felt more conducive to moving the energy, then that's the way you should be doing it. If you work pretty diligently at home on all the stuff that we do, then there'll come a time where you'll be able to do that. Okay? But you have to remember, this is relatively new. Even though you guys have been at it a little while, in the framework of what we think of a Tai Chi training, for a lifetime, with all due respect, we're like infants. Okay? So we have to give our bodies time to adjust and adapt. Okay? Any questions on that before we move on? Okay. Let's put ourselves, if you will, just to go over these newer movements, okay? We're going to put ourselves facing the doorway wall with the left foot on a slight angle. And we're going to put our right heel in that 90-10 stance as if we just did lift hands. We're going to go back over this up to this point, but this is the newest part, and I want to review this. So try to remember, when you place your right heel down in the framework of your form, that right heel should line up in line with your left heel. So if you drew an imaginary line from your left heel, that's where your right heel should be in the framework of the form. A little bit different in your Qi Kung that we just did. Okay? Now, have your right fingertips underneath the right eye and the left hand, without crossing the center line, lined up with the inner part of the elbow. Now, you're 90% of the way through the rear foot. That means your pivot on your right heel should be effortless. So as you pivot on that right heel towards the mirror, the left palm blocks down in front of the lower dantian, and the right palm goes right over that till you get to the point where the right toes are straight to the mirror. Okay, so now the body should be squared up here to the mirror. And the left hand is palm down at the lower dantian, and the other hand is right over the back of that right hand. Okay, and the weight is through the right foot there. So both feet are flat, but the predominant weighted foot is the right. Let's just keep your left foot where it's at and just pivot. So what's happening, Marianne, is that, remember what I said, that this has to line up with the heel for in the form. So if you put your left heel here, your right heel there, I'm sorry. And see how it's in line? Now, if you pivot and then sink the weight without, but you gotta stay flat on this one. Just bring this a little bit more here, and pivot just on that one. And when you sink it, that center line closes up. Okay, that's what we want there. This is why it's so important, guys, to understand that when you put that heel down, it has to be in line with the left. Okay, because if you can just turn your head, and if you can stay. If I'm here like this and I make this, I'm coming around. See how my center line closes up here. Okay, think of a kick coming towards the groin. So if I come around like this, boom, and I close the center line, the kick can't get in there. If I plant too far out here and I come around, that's all exposed. Or if I plant too wide out here, I come around, it's all exposed. So this is very, very critical. It may feel a little awkward right now, but it'll begin to loosen up, okay? So make sure the left foot is not on too much of an angle, and you have the right heel in line with the left, 90-10 stance, fingertips of the right hand underneath the right eye. Make your pivot on that right heel as the left palm blocks down and the right one goes over that. And the weight sinks through the right foot as soon as that toe, in this case, is lined up to the mirror. Then with the weight through the right foot, your stork spreads its wings, just like your Chi Kung's been helping you with here. Out to the corners, keeping the elbows down. Now the weight's through the right foot there at that point, remember? So when you seat both wrists and the palms go flat, you pivot on the left toes. And then as you bring the left foot in and touch on the toes, the hands come into shoulders distance. And now as you sink the weight through both feet, the heels are down. This is called scoop the moon from C-bottom. So with the knees lightly touching and the heels down and the eyes fixed to the front, you just go down to what you're comfortable with. And then the palms spread out. And with an awareness of gathering here, you turn both palms up and the right wrist goes underneath the left. And now here's very important. Have the right crane head level with your navel there. So when you come up and the weight's through the left foot, that right crane head stays right at navel height. Okay, so let's try that a couple times. Okay, this is what we went over last week in case you weren't here. So put your left foot at a slight angle. The right heel in line with the left, 90-10 weight distribution. Just you have to be on the heel there, Karen. You're on the toe there?
Oh, I'm
Heel,
sorry.
yeah, lift hands, okay? So the right fingertips underneath the right eye. So now you're going to make your pivot nice and soft and slow as now the left hand drops down and the right one goes over top of that. Boom. And the weight's through the right foot there. Okay? Now, with the weight through the right foot, stork spreads wings. And now seat both wrists as you pivot on the left toes. Both feet are facing the mirror. And then bring the left foot in. As the hands come into shoulders distance, touch on the toes first. And as the heels touch Mother Earth, the knees lightly touch, scoop the moon from C-bottom. You have to have your gaze out to the mirror so you can watch. Palms spread out, turn up, and then the right wrist goes under. At that point, the weight's going through the left foot. The right crane head is right at your navel, and you come up vertical. Okay? Let's try that again. Okay. Left foot at a slight angle. Touch on the right heel. Make sure it's 90-10. Get your hands, right hand's the forward hand, left hand's the rear hand. Make sure you're 90-10. This has to be, when you're making a pivot, it has to be empty or you'll hurt your knee or ankle or both, okay? So now, make your pivot, and as you're pivoting, the left palm blocks down, and the right one goes over that, sinking the weight through the right foot. Now the block has to be at lower Dantian height. And then stork spreads wings, and then seat both wrists as you pivot on the left toes. Bring the left foot in as the hands come in, touch on the toes, sink it down for scoop the moon from C-bottom, keeping the heels touching Mother Earth, knees together. You only have to go down what you're comfortable with. Palms spread out, they turn up as the weight goes through the left foot. Right wrist underneath, come up vertical, and your right crane head should be approximately in line with the height of your navel. Okay, so let's try to put this together here. And then we're going to save like 10 minutes here, and we're going to just touch on this new movement, this crane pulls and swing, and show you where we're going with that. So we're pretty well spread out here. You'll just have to, Carolyn and Karen, and Roy and Mary Ann, you sort of have to just shuffle into the center a little bit, like if you, and maybe, stagger yourselves, because we're going to do this form up to the point where we know it. So let's put our our feet shoulders distance apart here. And if you can't see me, I know we have a big class and we're a little bit, tight on room, but put yourself where you're comfortable. Okay, let's give it a try and we'll see. I'm going to talk you through it, of course. So from Wu Ji, commencement, you're going to extend out through the crane heads. The shoulder height is always keeping the elbows down. Once it's shoulder height, you're going to seat both wrists, and the palms are going to descend downward to top of the thigh height. Gaze left. The weight is shifted through the left foot as the left crane head rises to shoulder height. Seat the wrist and open the right quad, turning slightly to the left. Shift the weight through the right foot as you exchange the hands. Right crane head up, left palm down. Weights through the right foot as you seat the right wrist. Now you should be squared up here. Okay, just going to pause for a moment. It should be squared up and the weight should be through the right foot. Now, as you pick up on the left toe slightly and pivot on the left heel, turn your left palm up and feel the chi ball. So you got to pivot on that left heel to bring the body around and create your chi ball. And then roll the weight back through the left foot and holding the chi ball, pivot on your right heel and sink the weight and C-step through and stroke the bird's tail. Remember, left palm is out in front of your chest. You're in a bow stance. You got it, Francis, that's good. Make sure your front knee's bent. And make sure your left palm is right in front of your chest. Okay? And you're going to roll the weight back. And as you pivot, turn the left palm down and the right one up. Make your chi ball as you sink the weight. And come through as your C-step. Remember, Pong Lu Jian. Left palm drops and connects with the right wrist. And in a gentle rising arc, that right crane head goes to your chin height. Not too bad, good. And as you roll back, your Lu. As you roll back, right palm up, left one down. So just take a peek over here, Mary. I know you're like, I know it's all new for all, but there you go, that's it. Okay, and then keeping those hands consistently spaced, turn from the waist until the left hand's in line with the left hip, and then circle the left fingers down, up, and then the knife edge goes behind the right wrist, and that goes to the center of your chest height in a bow stance. Okay? Now, as you roll the weight back, turn both palms down and let the left wrist go over the right. And then separate the hands to shoulders distance. Okay, slight turn to the left. Guide your palms down to waist height and create your push, keeping the hands shoulders distance apart, elbows down, of course. Fingertips come level to shoulders, 60-40 bow stance. Wrist press is your transition move. Now, you're going to pivot. Now, you have to be up on that front heel as you do your wrist press. So the weight's through the left foot. That lets you pivot on the right heel as far as you can go. And then you sink the weight through the right foot, simultaneously pivoting to a cat stance on the left toes. Turn your left palm towards you and make your crane speak. So we're just trying to break this down. It's all going to flow together. Try to keep your right elbows down. Okay, and then as you bring that left foot into a tighter cat, bring the palm under the beak. And as you C-step out with the left foot to do single whip, try to go shoulders distance to the best of your ability, sinking the weight as you seat the left wrist looking through tiger's mouth. Okay, not too bad. Now, keep the front foot flat. This is called shoulder stroke. Keeping the front foot flat, you roll the weight back as you open the right hand and turn the body slightly to the right. Then you make a slight pivot on the left heel. Now think of lift hands. You're going to sink the weight. If you're comfortable bringing the knee up, bring it up. If not, touch on the right heel right in front of the left heel in line. Now you're not going to have the advantage of the mirror here because you're going to turn this way, okay? So now, the weight's through the left foot. So you're going to pivot on the right heel as the left palm blocks down, and the right one goes right over the top of that as you sink the weight through the right foot. Now, stork spreads wings. Crane heads go out and up to the corners, weights through the right foot.